Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show with the blizzard of 2022. Certainly right along the immediate coast, getting hammered. Long Island getting hit especially hard. Southeastern New England, back down to the Connecticut coast. It's been kind of a rough morning. The Jersey Shore, uh, record set at Atlantic City. Not only they broke their monthly record there, and they got 15 on the ground. There's every bit of a foot plus in Suffolk County on Long Island. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware, and they are open today. So uh, if you need to get to them, it won't look as nice as that outside shot is when the weather is nice. But if your snowblower died and you need a new one, they got them. They've got spreaders in case the wheels have fallen off yours, and then of course mag ice pellets and flakes and Pelledo, great snow and ice melting products, and tons of rock salt. If you were in the commercial business, salting roads, or maybe you're a snow removal company and you need to pick up some rock salt, head over to Omni because they have tons of it in stock and the lowest prices anywhere in the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Although I doubt people will be coming from New Jersey and Connecticut. Maybe they'll just be the locals on Long Island today. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number. And the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. Come, you need that Pelledo. You need that salt. You need anything to. Joe, I honestly agree with one of our longtime people on the chat board, Steve Lapointe. Suffolk County, indeed, looks like it's going to be the big winner in this snowstorm. If you can say winner, I guess you're into snow. Just a few minutes ago, I was looking at on CBS Channel 2, an old friend of yours, Carolyn Gussoff, who's still doing it
oh,
after all
bless
of
her
these years,
heart.
and she made a measurement. I don't know exactly where she was, but she was in Suffolk County, stuck the yardstick in, and came out with 12 inches, and it was still coming down fairly hard where she was. So it's quite obvious that Steve Lapointe is going to be right. Suffolk County will indeed be the big winner when this is all over said and done in terms of snow accumulation.
And they actually have a long way to go because what's going to happen is uh, the back edge of the snow is probably going to get to New York City about, let's say 1 o'clock, noon or 1 o'clock. You want to be conservative, 1 o'clock. And by the way, the temperature right now is in New York City is 15 with snow. So you got to believe that the ratios right now are at every bit of 15 to 1, maybe 18 to 1. But on the east end, I have a friend of mine in Southampton, George Kasdan, and he just sent me some pictures, and he measured 15 there. So if they got 15, that back edge is going to get to New York City and Western Connecticut, and then it's going to stop because the upper trough, the upper air feature is oriented north south, and it's really not lifting up. It's just kind of sort of sliding northeastward. So areas to the east are going to have to wait for that north wind to come down the Connecticut River Valley and just dry the snow up. So it could still, there's probably going to be stuff on the radar to 7, 8, or maybe even 9 o'clock before it's all gone. So these numbers these numbers are going to continue to go up. The heaviest snow bands, Joe, are just they're right along the immediate coast. They just edging right along the coast, and those are going to start pulling away though. But you only got a few inches up your way.
I haven't had yet neither Renata and I have had the nerve to step outside because right now here at Rancho Rayo in Putnam Valley, it is all of 9 degrees. The wind is not horrible. I mean, I've seen it a lot worse, but it's still blowing at about 15 or maybe even 20 miles per hour sustained. And I don't even want to think about what the wind chill is. But it doesn't look, Joe, like we had more than maybe 3 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Renata guesstimates it might be 2. Normally, by this time, I would have gone out with my ruler or yardstick to make a measurement. But like I said, it is bitter out there. I am not looking forward to this afternoon when I'm going to have to get out there and get rid of all of this. I'm thankful for 2 things. Number one, it's not a tremendous amount of snow to get rid of. Number two, unlike the spackle that fell on my driveway 2 weeks ago with the snow changing to rain, this is indeed a very puffy, fluffy, powdery snow. So the snow blower should be able to throw it a good distance. It should be a lot easier to get rid of, but still, it is just bitter out there. I cannot remember at this hour of the morning seeing temperatures as cold as they are, and factored in with the wind. It really is brutal out there. This is truly, but we've been saying this for the last several days, straight from the north, a wind coming straight on down, and I guess directed even toward you, Joe. What's your temperature at this hour?
Well, now we've had this connection this year with the way the pattern is that it seems like when you're cold, I'm cold. When you snow, I snow. I woke up this morning. I had a nice coating of snow on everything, the roads, just a coating, but a definite coating. And I'm thinking up in the mountains, they probably got up in the higher elevations because I'm at 2,200 feet. So I'm sure the higher elevations got more, especially to the northeast of me because they had those winter storm warnings. 16 was my low, and I just broke the 20-degree mark, so I'm back over 20. And we have a 20 to 25 mile. We're getting gusts here to 25, 30 every once in a while. Thankfully, no higher than that. I pulled up the New York radar, and you could see the bands of snow. And then we're going to go to the Boston radar because that's crazy right now. Look at the bands of heavy snow are coming in from the southeast, and it looks like almost to the Nassau-Suffolk line, and then they kind of peter out a bit in Suffolk County, in Nassau County, and back to New York City. You've got and this is, Joe, the function of the fact of how cold it is. It's snowing now. Normally, if we were sitting at 31 or 32, the stuff that's in the blue would just be not reaching the ground. But the snow is so dry and powdery that the radar, it's probably snowing still relatively, I would say, steadily in the light blue areas, and the dark greens, especially the darkest green, that's S plus. That's heavy snow, and there's a band there over the east end that extends up into southeastern Connecticut, and then another band coming in behind it now over Montauk and in southeastern Rhode Island. Take Boston's radar, Mr. Rayo. Take a look. Remember where Boston yesterday had that high probability of at least 20 and 25, and I think we did even look at a probability of at least what? Is there a 30? Did we look at a 30? I don't remember. I know we looked.
I think they had for parts of Cape Cod. I think they had a 15 or 20% chance of a 30. And
yes.
And you know what? I think that probability is getting better by the minute by looking at that radar right now.
If I think I still have it. The WPC map. This was for at least 18, and this was from yesterday. And look where the salmon area is. And now look at the Boston radar and look at those echoes. They've got those yellow echoes. That's got to be S plus plus, 2 to 3 inch an hour snows. I would bet. Yeah. I would bet. In fact, let's see. I'll pull up a few of Boston's obs and see what's going on. Joe Rayo's monitoring the chat board today, and thanks for being here. By the way, on this Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning shows you where my head is at. This Saturday morning. Why did I say Wednesday? Oh my God, that was a real senior moment there. This Saturday morning, an unusual Joe and Joe weather show, and let's go. I want to see Boston's obs here. Everybody must be trying to get into the Boston site because it's loading a little slowly. 17 right now in Boston. Heavy snow, freezing fog, and windy. The wind chill is got to be down near zero. Okay, so we've got S plus in Boston, S plus in Lawrence, and by the way, S plus is secret weather code for heavy snow. That's how we used to call it, because when we used to read it in the teletype and the code they sent out, S would be snow and the plus sign would be heavy snow. Not that we saw those S pluses very often in those early, in those back in those days, because it didn't snow very much back in those days. Lawrence, heavy snow, yes. Moderate at Bedford, Moderate at Marshfield. Plymouth is not available. Blue Hill is not available. You gotta believe that the wind must have done something there. Gust to 40 at Logan Airport, 41 at Marshfield. Taunton, they got fog, but they have heavy snow and fog there. Taunton, 20 degrees, a quarter of a mile visibilities. All these places have a quarter of a mile, which is usually the visibility you need for heavy snow. Heavy snow in New Bedford. Uh, 17 gusting to 33. Plymouth, I'm sorry, Falmouth is moderate snow 28, northeast at 38, gusting to 58. Nantucket, are you
Ooh.
are you sitting down for this? Snow and 35, okay? Moderate snow and 35. Wind north 49, gusting to 64.
Oh.
That
Oh.
that
Oh.
that's nuts. Moderate at S plus heavy snow at Worcester, uh, Fitchburg, half a mile. Orange, half a mile. I mean, there's in Rhode Island, heavy snow in Providence, 19 there. 33 gusting to 46. Block Island, heavy snow in 21 in Block Island. 35 gusting to 52. In Connecticut, everybody's got moderate snow in Connecticut. Everybody except New Haven is in the teens, and Groton is also at 21. Uh, Wind gust 43 in Groton. That's the only one that's over 40. And Portland, Maine still has not surpassed Atlantic City with the seasonal snowfall so far. Atlantic City is ahead of Portland, but Portland's got moderate snow, and we've got light to moderate snows throughout most of Maine. Moderate snow in New York City in Central Park, 17, 24 gusting to 33. Light snow in Albany, 4, with a dew point of -2. And I'm looking at the Coast Guard stations with their winds. The Boston Buoy is at 51 knots. Nantucket Sound, 47 knots, and the Isle of Shoals, Joe. The Isle of Shoals. Have you
All
ever
of
been? Have
shoals.
you? And
No.
that does have an ominous tone to it, doesn't it? The Isle of
Yeah.
Shoals. Uh,
Yes, indeed. Especially on a day like today. It's
so
crazy.
yeah,
I
blizzard.
can't even remember. I'm trying to, as you're talking, Joe,
Go ahead.
and the Rolodex, the weather Rolodex in my head, I'm trying to think or trying to remember the last time we had snow like this. It probably was maybe one of the storms like 2013, 2014, when we had single digit temperatures up here with snow falling. Now, we don't have a moderate, we have more like a light snow blowing and drifting and whatever here in Putnam Valley. But like I said, we didn't get a whole heck of a lot of snow, but still, I mean, the temperatures, the wind, the chill factor. This is something that doesn't happen too frequently in the last 10 years or 12 years, maybe only once or twice before. It is a very, very a unique, if I may say, morning in terms of weather, not just here, but throughout much of the immediate tri-state area.
Yeah, the back edge now is beginning to creep eastward through eastern Pennsylvania. You can see it there. It actually was further to the west a couple of hours ago, so it's moved eastward. Still seeing snow falling back through New Jersey, steady snow, and it's actually light snow again, also in parts of eastern Pennsylvania. That part pulls out, and if I'll bring up the HRRR model is what I'm using today, and since it's a short range issue, that was an earlier map. This is where it gets tricky when you look at snowfall forecast maps because people will look at the numbers and they'll see a low number. You have to check the valid timestamps because once it starts snowing, for example, I pulled up the map for out of Upton this morning, and it was the snow amounts were they didn't count whatever what had fallen overnight wasn't in the count, so they were showing you how much snow was going to fall from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So that would be in addition to
Right.
whatever had already fallen. So you have to make sure you read that correctly. So here's the HRRR. Let's get the latest run, which is the 14Z run, and see how much of that is actually in.
Thank you to Brendan Doherty for hitting Super Chats first today on the chat board to hit it, and thank you very much, Brendan.
Yep. Thank you very much. for hitting the tip jar. So here's the HRRR. This is at 10 o'clock. So at 1 o'clock, look at this, Joe. Actually, this is a little different. This is interesting. And I think the satellite and radar verify this, because I noticed on the satellite loop about an hour ago that the clouds in Pennsylvania were still moving to the northwest. Take a look at this on the HRRR. So this is 10 o'clock. I do have the maps on the screen, right? Yes, I do. Okay, just making sure.
Yes, you do.
So watch
You do.
that back edge. At 1 o'clock now, in the back edge of the snow, instead of being on the earlier runs, was running from New York City down the New Jersey coast. It's on the Pennsylvania-New Jersey border, and you still have these darker blue bands over Long Island, especially over the east end. Now here it is. This is 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and it's still just west of West New York City with the back edge. And then after that, it starts to move. So I think what we're seeing, and you see how the snow on Long Island, this is at 7 o'clock. It's still snowing in Suffolk County at 7 o'clock tonight, although it's on the light side. But what you're seeing is, if you recall, we talked about how, the whole stretched out, it's really a double low structure. The HRRR stretches that isobar back, and that's right over here. Here's the isobar I'm talking about, and it's all stretched back. So there's actually another low forming underneath the upper low that's beginning to lift up to the northeast. So that is actually keeping the snow shield further to the west. So it looks like it may actually snow for a few extra hours here before it finally pulls away.
That's interesting, because on CBS they're relying, of course, on the Futurecast model, and that model is showing a definitive end to the snow by noontime in New York and along the Hudson River Valley. And obviously, from what you're seeing here on the HRRR, that apparently ain't going to happen.
Well,
that's by the way, that's the RPM model. By the way, that when you see a Futurecast on your TV station, they're using the RPM, which I think is developed by the folks over at WSI in Massachusetts. But that's saying noontime. In fact, that's what Elise Finch has been telling everybody. It's all going to be over by noon. Noon, it's going to be done.
I don't think so, Joe. I don't think so.
Yeah,
if you look at the radar, the back edge is it's not. This is only this is a 2-hour loop. That back edge is not moving. It's inching eastward, and the bands along the shore are still moving northwest. So yeah, this is going to hang around for a few extra hours, and that's going to put on some extra inches in the eastern half in Suffolk County on Long Island, maybe even into eastern Nassau, and certainly in southeastern New England.
You were questioning yesterday. I know, only half kidding or whatever, but on my snow map yesterday for the Twin Forks, I had like 18 to 24, and I think you made the comment, you went 24?
Well, no, I wasn't. No, Joe, I wasn't questioning that you went. I wasn't questioning the 24 part. But my exclamation was really more toward the fact that you went, because you don't usually throw out numbers like that. So I was. Yes, I didn't have a. Exactly. I didn't have a problem with the number. It was just my surprise that, oh my God, you went really nice and aggressive out there. So that's
well, as I said before with this, and I think you'll agree, the most difficult part was not only trying to figure out who was going to get the heaviest amount, but who was going to get the lighter amounts and where the cutoff line would be, which is why I went for I originally went 2 to 4 for here in Putnam Valley, and then I bumped it up to 4 to 8. Now, what I'm saying to myself is, all right, don't get upset. You just might hit the bottom end of that, and you'll still win out or whatever. We might get 4 here before this is all over said and done, especially with the slowing of the back edge from the west. But it's been very difficult to define for any one region who was going to get what in terms of this snow. In some places to the west, it might have been a bit more than what they're actually going to end up with. And to the east, my God, I mean, the way it's coming down now and the way it looks like it's going to be coming on down for a number of hours to come, there's even a slight chance that it may even surpass that 24-inch total, at least for parts of the Forks and extreme eastern Long Island and southeastern Connecticut.
Yeah, look, I brought up the visible loop here of the Atlantic, the eastern seaboard. Look at the clouds in Pennsylvania. They're not flying east, Joe. They're actually up until the last maybe few frames, they were still moving northwest. Only in the last couple of frames they stopped doing that and maybe start inching east a little bit. This is gonna take longer to get out of. This is definitely going to take longer to get out of the way. There's no doubt in my
Right.
mind, and I think that's going to add more inches. In those places that got hit very hard, they're going to see some. They're going to see some. There's going to be a lot of. This is a 20 incher. If this is for Suffolk County, this is on Long Island, southeastern Connecticut, maybe even into the central Connecticut coast. This is a 20 pluser when it's all done, and certainly for Rhode Island, southeastern New England. A lot of I've seen posts and comments on a couple of other weather pages. I have a friend of mine who Jeff Denoyers, who does weather up in Providence at one of the TV stations there, and the snow lovers there in Rhode Island have been, they've been really just dying because of the fact that they seem to, in the last couple of years, well, certainly even last year and this year, they got cheated out of a few snow events that uh, the New York City area did and did not get cheated out of. So they got to be those snow lovers are making up for it big time.
I don't know if you could call that. Joe Lopresti says it almost looks like it's developing an eye. I don't know if that's necessarily an eye or whether it just happens to be a one big cloud void out over the ocean. But it is rather interesting that here's all this activity happening over us, Boston, Long Island, New England, and meanwhile, out over the ocean, a few hundred miles to the east, there's this one, and it's not just a little compact, void of cloud. I mean, this is a big area of clear sky and sunny conditions probably occurring out over the ocean right now on
Yeah,
the
it is.
visible satellite
It
view.
is. It is kind of weird. There's a little curl. I'll circle it here. There's kind of I could kind of see maybe the center is here, and what you're seeing here it perhaps is a bit of a dry slot. What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah,
Yeah, that's
that looks
or
like
you know what, Joe? This could be the ocean
the
low,
upper low.
and this is the
Yeah,
upper low right here that's forming that new surface
right,
system, and that's why these clouds are backing westward, or at least they were backing westward up until the last couple of frames. Yeah, I mean, look,
right,
look where I drew
right,
that purple back through Pennsylvania, and then look at the clouds that are on the other side of it. They're still not really, they're just barely pushing east. So,
right.
snow lovers, especially from New York City east, you're gonna get a few extra hours of this. And actually, no, I'm sorry, even in New Jersey, you'll probably see some light snows continuing into this afternoon, and get well, and you will get a few extra hours out of it, Joe. So you might get it. Maybe you'll get lucky. You get sometimes in those on the west side where it looks like it's light snow because of the bitter cold temperatures that you'll put down like a fluffy couple of inches on top of what you have, and you'll get to the mid range. And no and
Right.
no and no
Right.
and no forecast. We all know with snow forecast, there's always going to be a bust area somewhere. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
you just can't make it's impossible to make an
As I
absolutely
s-
perfect forecast.
as I as I said, like playing pool with egg-shaped balls, and somebody is seeing that somebody's seeing one of those balls heading right for the side pocket, and then all of a sudden, at the last minute, bloop. What
Exactly.
happened?
This is
Justin Vale writes, what's interesting? What's interesting? This is Justin Vale says, what's interesting with this, even out to the western edge, is of the lighter snow. The fact that there has been no dry slots that have moved land so far. Usually, with storms like this, like these, dry slots occur.
yeah. Look, well, the low yeah the low center is analyzed in that big clear area. I put the 12Z surface map on, and
Right.
there's a 975 low. It looks like it's at 30, about I would say about maybe 38 and a half and about 69. But then notice that WPC analyzes a 985 low southwest of there. That is, if it was not for
Right.
if it was not for that, and if this were instead of having an upper low that was trying to cut off, Joe, if it was just a sharper trough with no cutoff, then a low in that position, the back edge of the snow probably would be at New York City and along the New Jersey shore, and everybody north and west of there wouldn't be seeing a flake or an ice pellet. And maybe the back edge of the heavy snow might have been eastern Long Island, eastern Connecticut, Rhode Island to southeastern New England, and those big amounts that are occurring wouldn't be happening. They would get a decent snowfall out of it. Maybe the Cape would do well, but north and west of there, there'd be a sharp cutoff, and there wouldn't. So the upper low, the structure of the upper air, certainly, I guess we could say, save the day for the areas.
Snow lovers.
Yes, for the snow lovers. Bill Rogers hitting super chat. Thanks for the kind words regarding our shows this week. Most appreciated. Robert McCulley hitting super chat also this morning. He says snow is on the lighter side in western Nassau. Thanks for all of your work, guys, and thank you very much for hitting the tip jar. So I just hope the the folks that like to watch these things on, and are really into weather, that they do take the time to move away from the computer screen and go look out the window. Although I talked to Alan Casper this morning, and he's furious because
Why?
well, all of his windows are snow covered, so he can't see a thing. He's in a prison cell, he says. I told him, go out and open the garage. Go out in the garage and open the garage door and watch it that way.
Oh, poor Alan.
Too funny.
Alan, for those of you who are new to this or have only, gotten involved in weather in the last 10 or 15 years, you must know that growing up, Joe and I used to watch, and of course, you were more or less with Alan at CBS as an intern in the late 70s. But Alan Casper was by far and away the best synoptic meteorologist. While you had, for example, when Dr. Frank Field on Channel 4, highly respected in the medical field, and also at one time was a meteorologist at the National Weather Service back in the 1940s, I might add, folks.
Yes. By the way,
all he would do,
and he's still with us. He's 90. I think he's.
Oh yeah,
I think he's 99
96?
Now. I think he might be approaching
96, 99.
I think he might be approaching 100.
But what Dr. Frank Field would do was just, since at 30 Rockefeller Plaza is where NBC is, and at one time the National Weather Service was at 30 Rock, what they would simply do is they would just take a camera crew during a storm like this and go downstairs or whatever and talk to one of the meteorologists on duty, be it Tom Morgan, Tom Grant, whoever.
Gunther Reese.
Frank would just, Gunther Reese, or he would just simply call up and say, all right, guys, what are you going for? But Alan was a completely different animal. Alan would look at the model runs. Alan would plot sectionals. Alan would look at everything. And in fact, one night, in the advance of a big storm, I remember this distinctly on the 11 o'clock report, he pulled out the LFM, the 2-dot LFM, and held it up to the camera and said, and now as the LFM makes its New York television debut, I almost fell on the floor. That was the kind of forecaster Alan was. And Alan, I'm sure, is still very much into weather. And Joe is not kidding.
We talk every day.
Alan was a snow junkie.
Yes.
Alan is a snow junkie. And if he can't get his fill, and especially out of a storm like this, he will be very upset. I can understand that.
Oh, I'm sure. Lisa Geraldine hitting super chat. Welcome to the show, Lisa. I think you're new to the chat board here. She says, great work, guys. Can't see the JFK anymore from your window. Enjoy the snow. I was looking at some of the observations. It's moderate to heavy in some places back to New York City at the moment. And also, Joe, look at I got the hazards map with the temperatures. It's going to be bitter cold tonight into tomorrow morning. It's going to be single digits everywhere. It's the Arctic tundra with the deep snow cover. Meanwhile, just to show you the temperature differential, for example, Kennedy is 16. and they are reporting a quarter of a mile in heavy snow and blowing snow. Farmingdale to the east is now 15, with reporting a quarter of a mile in heavy snow, and then you go to the east end. Finally, the east end temperatures, which were in the middle and upper 20s, have dropped into the low 20s. So the cold air again continues to sink southward, and I didn't. I should have caught this yesterday from the forecast. When we were talking about how this was all going to evolve. Almost always, almost always in instances like this, the cold air comes in faster than advertised. And once that,
Yep.
and once that we were done with the show last night, I was looking at the surface plots on the maps and some of the maps, just the 3 hourlies on the guidance, and noticed that the pressure drops from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock in the morning were huge, and that with the low exploding, and that really was what we were waiting for. We were waiting for the low the pressure to drop from say 1,004 down to 985 or even 980, and once that process got underway, so it should not have come as a shock to me when I woke up and I pulled up the Upton website and saw that Central Park at 6 o'clock in the morning was at 20 degrees. At first I was shocked, and then I thought about it and said, no, that's what it should have been. It should have been, because a lot of the digital forecast didn't have it going below 20 until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So clearly that was
Right.
that was incorrect. And then I remember last night I pulled up a sounding in Rockland County on the HRRR, and it had a temperature for, I think, 10 o'clock this morning or 11 o'clock this morning. It had a temperature of 11. And I thought, that should have been another clue. So, there's so much to consider. Everybody, I'm going to come full screen because, maybe it's time for a little bit of a rant. By the way, I have a 12-pound turkey in the oven with cornbread, sausage, pecan stuffing. This is what I did this morning because my daughter is on the way, and of course the oven being on helps to, um, warm up the house nicely. Actually, I have to take it out and baste it. I'll bring it here so you can see it. Okay, hang on. I can
Please.
leave my headsets on. I should have gotten one of these headsets sooner because it just makes life so much easier.
I see you've lit the Christmas tree up today in celebration of all of this.
Yes. So everybody, take a look. So this is my 12-pound turkey with cornbread, sausage stuffing, and it's doing beautifully. I also put a cup and a half of red wine. And I always liked it when we have winter storms and cold weather. It was always something for me to. I always liked to cook when they were happening. And there you go. Back in. I'll baste it later.
Are you waiting for applause? I know a lot of these TV shows now with these virtual audiences, and toward the end of the segment, you see them all going like this. So I will do that on behalf of the chat board or whatever.
The applause light is going on.
Amazing.
Applause. The only thing I'm missing here is I decided not to do it, but I usually put like 4 or 5 strips of bacon across the breast to give it that nice. I sometimes use maple bacon, and it gives it a really nice flavor to it. But anytime we had winter storms with my kids were growing up, the big deal what we would do is we would get pizza dough, and we would flatten it, tear out pieces, flatten it out like a pancake, and then deep fry it. And that was sort of the comfort food to come into when you came out of the cold. That was a tradition with my kids growing up. So anyhow,
the executive producer just came down to inform me that she was very, very brave enough to step outside with a 9-degree temperature and probably sub-zero wind chill to make a measurement, and we officially now have 3 inches here in Putnam Valley. So 1 more inch, and I'll hit the bottom end of my my projected range from yesterday. And the way things look right now, I think we'll probably get that additional inch when the snow finally does come to an end. Not at noontime as it looks to some, but it looks like, Joe, I agree with you, maybe more like 3 or 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And by the way, on Super Chat, we have the chairman hitting Super Chat today. Thanks so much. Jason Kaplan, Carl Weitz, and Frank Karajat. All of you, thank you so much for hitting on this wild and woolly winter morning.
And the chairman earlier had 8 inches in Manalapan. He's got to have, has to be every bit of a foot plus by now, I would think.
Wait a minute. What did you say, dear?
Remind everybody, because we have a lot of old snow, that they should have to measure where there isn't old snow.
Right. Measure where there's not any old snow. You know, the kind that's walking around with a cane right now. Stay away from that snow. You want the new snow, the baby snow that has developed over the last 8 or 12 hours. Thank you, dear.
Yes.
By the way, I should also point out for those of you who are TV watchers in New York that ably assisting Elise Finch today is Giorgio. I'm sorry to say I don't have the last name, but often when Lonnie is working on Channel 2 and he's relying on Giorgio to help with his graphics or whatever, and we never see Giorgio, but today we've got Giorgio teamed up with Elise Finch, and meanwhile John Elliott is outside frolicking in the snow, and I hope he's enjoying himself out there, along with all the other CBS reporters.
Aren't you glad? This is a day where I thought this came into my mind this morning, Joe. I am so glad I'm not working these things anymore. I got to see my fair share of snowstorms over the years where I wasn't working, especially when I was at Pix, because I was just working the weekend, so that was really nice. But I am thrilled to death that I never have to do that again. Never, ever have to do that again. I could sit in the comfort of my own home, and you could sit in the comfort of your own home, and you don't have to drive in it. You don't have to drive in it in some at some ungodly hour in some horrific conditions. You can just sit back in a heated home and just relax and enjoy it. That's the best way to do it.
You're right in that regard, because at News 12 Westchester for many, many, many years, we had our morning meteorologist, Bryson Van Eck. And of course, I was the afternoon and evening meteorologist. So when I would come in early, and this is a good example, I would come in extra early and I would be there by 9, 10, 11 o'clock. And the producers would see me and they'd say, "Oh, look, Joe is here. Okay, we're going to put you outside, Joe." We had a little section out front, which we called the porch. We'll put Joe on the porch and he'll be. So every time Bryson did his, report from in the nice warm studio in front of the chroma key wall, they say, "Well, now let's go out to Joe Rayo, who's out in the elements right now." And here I am standing there with the microphone, with the stick, as we called it, freezing my head off. And I've been out there with wind chills sometimes at 30 below zero or blizzard conditions or whatever. I was always the guy who ended up outside. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Joe. I'm glad that I'm not outside right now with what's going on out there while somebody else is in the nice warm studio enjoying themselves. So yeah, it is comforting not to have to do that anymore.
And
I'm too old for that.
And when I was at Fios, and when you and I were at Fios together, I don't think when I was at Fios I went outside for anything. Maybe once.
No,
I think maybe once, but that was it. They knew better.
There was one storm, I forget which one.
They knew better than to ask me.
Well, first of all, we had a whole gang at Fios. Number one, we had 6 people doing the weather at Fios. I think we had for a time we had the biggest on-camera weather staff, and so you'd have Brian Fitzgerald out there with his little dinky camera on a tripod, and we go out on one of the ramps outside. And so it was, and we just start the camera and get into the shot. So we had Brian, we had you, we had me, we had Addison Green. Sometimes we had Brittany out there. There was a whole bunch of us was just like frolicking in the snow, whatever. And as soon as the shot was over, he said, "All right, let's get back inside."
Yeah, I know. Trish Sparacchio.
Ken Musillo, thank you for hitting super chat.
And also Trish Sparacchio hitting super chat. Thank you so much. Most appreciated, really. Everybody's been just amazing with the tip jar the last several days, and thank you very much. I have I got the Fort Dix radar, so we could take a look at what's going on in New Guernsey and in eastern Pennsylvania. And one thing I just noticed while you were speaking, Joe, and I was pulling the radar up, it's kind of interesting here. Hang on, I'm just trying to get the. There we go. My mouse is like my mouse does crazy things. Sometimes it's hard for me to control it, and it just did a crazy thing now. So hang on. Here we go. Here it comes. Finally, here comes the Philadelphia radar. And one thing I'm noticing is you're actually getting some bands of green back in western New Jersey and in eastern Pennsylvania. Take a look. You see them? And again, in this bitter cold air, that could still be every bit of moderate snow. Actually, judging from the observations, it's certainly in that lighter blue area. It's still all a steady light snow that's falling. We probably should also go down. Let me go widen out to the Dover radar, because the Dover radar is a nice wide radar view. And I don't want to leave our friends down in Delaware out because blizzard warnings go down all the way to the Delmarva Peninsula. And here's the back edge. Now, here you're seeing the back edge making that eastward progress. Now to the Delaware state line with Maryland. And that area, that part of it is kind of pivoting. The bottom part of it is pivoting from west to east. But with the low still not north of 40 degrees north, that's another argument to say that that back edge is not going to be moving as fast. So, by the way, all you TV people that are in New York, though, that are on the air, that are watching this show while you're on your downtime, that's a nice little, little tip there. Just giving you a heads up that you're calling for these the snow to shut off at noon in New York City. That's 47 minutes from now, and the back edge is still west of Allentown. I don't think so. Just a thought. Just a thought. Joe, you know how generous I am, trying to always help people. And sometimes the TV people, they're too busy dancing. They're too busy dancing in the streets rather than concentrating on the radar and the satellite and the obs. Just letting them know.
It's what I've been saying for such a long time. There comes a time when you look at the model guidance, which of course you need to do in the days leading up to the event. But when the event comes, you should be plotting a sectional or even a simple sectional, looking at the radar, looking at the satellite, because forecasting is over. Now it's nowcasting. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Joe. Those who are still looking at their Futurecasts, who are looking at their RPM model and saying, oh, the RPM is saying this, and not looking at what is actually happening, are going to fall into this trap.
Well,
you're absolutely right.
At least if they were looking at the RPM, Joe, I'm sorry, if they were looking at the HRRR, but they're not. They're looking at the RPM. But if they were looking at the HRRR and a couple of the other models, they would catch this. I mean, even the GFS at 1 o'clock has the back edge just to the east of Trenton, and we can't see the 3 hourlies on tropical tidbits. But look where it is at 7. It goes from 1 o'clock from the back edge from just east of Trenton. It's still over Long Island, and of course now you're seeing the subsidence. And by the way, the surface low at that time. Now the back edge can move because the surface low is north of 40. It's up at around 42 or so. What is that? 40. Yeah, 42 and 67. And now you're getting the subsidence on the north wind coming down from New England, and everything dries out, and you can say goodbye. But you got to look at look at what's going on in front of you. You don't need you don't need to be looking at computer models at this stage of the game. You just don't.
Yes, absolutely. And while you're doing all of that, I'm just with the help of Mrs. Rayo, who again was brave enough to step outside and make measurements in several places. I'm now sending this 3-inch total to our friends over in Upton. I do hope Bill Goodman got in this morning safely. He is, I think, working.
He was working
he said
today?
he had to work the morning shift. Yeah, the morning shift. and I guess he had to leave early.
I would imagine. Frank Riccio hitting super chat to say thanks, Joe and Joe. Both your forecasts for the storm were great as usual. Thank you, Frank. Most appreciated. Frank's one of the regulars here. He's here almost every night. And participating in the conversation, which of course Joe and I love to see conversation and engagement. And Howard A is new to the channel. Welcome, Howard. Howard A hits the super chat tip jar today. Thank you so much, Howard, and I hope you like the show and you come back to us. I got the GFS because, as always with snow lovers, now that this one is now that this one is going to start winding down, we start looking for the next one, and doesn't look like we're going to see much of anything in the coming weeks. In fact, it's all going to get washed away because we're going to be seeing the little bit of ridging here in the eastern part of the United States. But one thing I've picked up over the last couple of days with looking at the long range, Joe. The pattern doesn't look like it's literally locking into a ridge in the east, ridge in the east trough in the west. It looks much more changeable, and I think if that is the case, if we do have a more changeable type pattern, where it kind of goes back and forth. Maybe you get a trough in the east for a few days, and then maybe you go to a ridge in the east for a few days, that kind of thing. It'll be the type of pattern that, while it's not the ideal pattern that a snow lover would like, but if you get the different streams of energy, if you get the north involved and maybe the south involved, and cold air times out just right, it still could, something may wind up happening over the next couple of weeks. It's not going to happen
sure.
next week, but maybe once we get through that, we could see some chances.
Well, the 6 to 10 day outlook issued yesterday by Climate Prediction Center has virtually the entire country, save for the far west, the left coast, and even there, not even reaching up to Washington, but from about southwestern Oregon down through California. That's the only place really where you have above normal probabilities for temperature. Most of the rest of the country is below normal, including where we are. And the coldest spot is right from the Great Lakes southward to the Gulf Coast and into Texas. And we have above normal precipitation on the 6 to 10 day outlook along the eastern seaboard. So with at or somewhat below normal temperatures and above normal precip, after we get past next week, there could be some shots of moisture enough to translate into some snow. And we're still below normal on the 8 to 14 day forecast. And if I recall, Joe, the forecast for February from the same Climate Prediction Center had above normal, significantly above normal along the eastern seaboard for much of February. I don't see that, at least for the first half of February.
I've been running the upper air to 384 hours from the 6C run while you were speaking, Joe. The deep trough in the east is what we have right now, and you see it here. And of course, this thing teleconnected with that low up in Hudson Bay and in Labrador, and of course, we've got our storm there that's offshore. And here's your deep trough, that cold air going all the way down. Just remember, follow the flow. When you look at these upper air maps, you just follow the flow. And there's our air coming down from the Arctic region to northwest Canada, into the Midwest, down into the southeast. The bottom of the trough is all the way down into Cuba. Here's your upper air storm cutting off the New Jersey coast this afternoon. Now that lifts out. The whole trough is going to go away. Here comes the ridge, and now here comes the trough in the west. But the trough in the west doesn't really stay there. You still have a pretty good vortex up in Hudson Bay and systems rotating around it. And in fact, going 10 days from now, a little bit of troughing there in the east, and there's still troughing that's coming into the U.S. From the northwest. You still got a flow that's coming out of Canada, and I don't think it's going to look exactly like this, but If your thinking was that you were going to have this sort of semi-permanent ridge in the east for the entire month and a deep trough in the west like we had in the month of December, this does not say that at all. And by the way, I did pick up yesterday when I was looking at the teleconnections in the longer term. Let's see if they still do it today. Thought it was kind of interesting with the PNA, the Pacific North America Index. Uh, well, it's actually going to be positive for the first week of February. You've got some members going a little negative toward the end, but there's still members that are positive toward the end of the forecast period. And this forecast period, as you go deeper into into time, we could walk in tomorrow and this could be different. But the Pacific North America Index, which uh, measures the pressure changes in the northern hemisphere. We look at that, and when it's positive, it's telling us that in general there's a trough in the east and a ridge in the west. And when it's negative, it's the other way around. You've got the ridge in the east and the trough in the west. Well, it really doesn't go that negative. It actually just comes down to the neutral line. It doesn't even go negative. Then it pops back up positive. So that would say to me, don't rule out. You know what I would say, Joe? I would say this. Today is January 29th. After next week, do not rule out the possibility of something showing up the week after. I wouldn't rule it out.
Oh yeah,
I think there's
yeah.
enough variability in the upper pattern that you're going to that something may pop up. And actually, if you've been watching the runs, if those of you that look at the weather models, if you've been watching the runs and looking out in the longer term on various runs, you've seen the model pick up on certain things, and we know that they're not going to be necessarily there on the next run. But you can see in terms of the different ways of systems timing out how something could happen. And I think that maybe something after next week, if we get the right timing, something could happen. Leon Probitsky hitting super chat. Thank you, Leon. Hope you're enjoying your big snow down in Lindenhurst. David Scott just hitting super chat saying Jeff Banson was a great guest last night. Please have him back. He brings the energy and amusing how he was responding to the message board. Yeah, we love having Jeff on, and he like many others has an open invitation to come on the show.
Right.
Tepe.
I meant to mention that because of all the guests that we've had so far, we've had Bill Corbell, Jim Witt, Lonnie Quinn, several others. Jeff was the only one who was actually looking at the chat board and responding to our viewers on the chat board, and I found that to be very interesting last night. So yeah, that was a great little thing that Jeff did for us last night.
And oh, now I forgot what I was going to say. Let me finish these super chats here. I now remember. Tepe 9076 says thanks Joe and Joe. Must be close to a foot in spots here in Eastern Long Island. Lots of drifts. Definitely a foot. You must be maybe in Western Nassau because George Kazan, who was on the chat board, I saw his post a little earlier saying he's got every bit of 16 to 18 where he is out in the Hamptons. Anthony Spiraccio hitting super chat today saying, "Hey Joe and Joe, you guys are the best. Thank you so much." And I got Howard A. and hopefully, did we get Scott Donig?
Frank Riccio,
we got Scott Donig hitting super chat saying, "Great job as usual, Joe's 21 degrees with heavy snow in Point Pleasant, 13 on the ground for Brick Township a few hours ago, so we may get to 18. Hope we get to do this again soon." Well, a storm like this, one in a winter is usually about the limit of it, but you never know. Sometime we've had in the 2000 to 2020 frame, we've had a number of winters where we had 2 or 3 of these in one winter. So I certainly wouldn't rule it out because I still think, Joe, that we're in that snow upcycle that started in 2020, which would argue that we should finish above normal this year after we had those 2 below normal years. Last year was above average, and since 2000 we have never had 3 out of 4 being below normal, which we had numerous times in the prior 30 years, 1970 to 2000. In fact, we had a couple of stretches where we went, I think there was one stretch where we went 8 years with below average snowfall. So
Well,
this
it, it'll be interesting to see if this happens at Central Park, because if you remember, before we started the winter, I pointed out that out of the 10 previous highest rainy summers, and we had number 2 on that list this past summer, 7 out of the 10 followed up with below normal snowfall at Central Park. So we'll see if that works out or doesn't work out this year. But Joe, we're talking about how rapid the temperature fell. I mean, last night, before I went to sleep, it was 27 here at Putnam Valley. Now it's currently 9. But Rob Friedlewitz, and I'm going to, on the chat board, when I finish this this comment, I'm going to put up his website, his URL. And if you really want to know about New York historic weather, that is the place to go to. So on this day in 1934, that's how many years ago, Joe? That's, my God, that's like almost like 90 years ago or something like that.
88 years ago, because that's the year my mother was born.
Right. Okay, 88 years ago, the temperature at Central Park at 9 a.m. was 6 degrees above zero. Just 18 hours after, the 3 p.m. temperature on January 28th had reached 58 degrees.
Oh.
One of the greatest temperature drops in less than 24 hours in New York City history. Winds gusting to 20 to 30 miles per hour in the morning produce sub-zero wind chills. Well, guess what, Rob? We've got that right now across much of the area. This incursion of Arctic air was accompanied by the only, that is wild, Joe. You talk about this? The incursion of Arctic air was accompanied by the only measurable snowfall of the month, January 1934, the only measurable snowfall, a measly 1/10 of 1 inch of snow. This was, in fact, the 4th January in a row to have less than 1 inch of snowfall. The average amount way back then was close to 10 inches of snow. So, and if I'm correct in my history here, I believe in 1934 that in about another 2 weeks, February the 9th, we would see the coldest temperature ever recorded in little old Manhattan of 15 degrees below zero. That must have been one heck of a cold winter, 1934. So from 58 yesterday at 3 p.m., Central Park dropped to 6 at 9 a.m. And this again was back in 1934. Unbelievable. And now I'm going to hit that. And I'm going to hit that right now on, there you go. I just put up Rob Friedlich's webpage, https thestarryeye.typepad.com/weather. And that is where you can get all of this interesting historical day-by-day weather information. I don't know anybody else who does it. He does it. They ought to hire him at NWS Upton to do a page on their webpage, or at least have at the very least they should have on the. In fact, I'm going to recommend that to Bill Goodman, that they ought to have a link to Rob Friedewitz's webpage, so that if you want to know what happened on this day, go to Rob Friedewitz's website, because he never disappoints.
So I'm thinking.
And Bobby Livingston, why are you really, Bobby Livingston? I am really disappointed. Why would Bobby Livingston be really disappointed?
I don't know. Unless he's not on the coast and well inland, unless he's in eastern Pennsylvania. I don't quite know. Share with us, please, why you're disappointed. I'd be curious.
And
my guess is
the sellout 19. The sellout 19 says 118,000 power outages already in Massachusetts. Wow.
Bobby must be well west and north of the coast, because he's only getting flurries where he is, he says. I just saw his earlier post. Well, you know what? I would be disappointed too. By the way, Joe Ray, he says, assuming, David Scott says to you, Joe, assuming today's snow brings Central Park to 15 for the season, has Central Park ever reached 40 by the end of the season? Wait, here's the caveat. Has Central Park ever reached 40 inches by the end of the season, getting there with the February and March snowfalls? So in other words, 15, so 10. Look, if we get 10 in, if we get, that would put us for 15 to the month. We didn't get hardly anything at all in December. but 15 would actually put us pretty close to normal for the end of
Right. Normal now is
January.
about 30.
So it is doable. I'm sure we've gotten over 40. In fact, there was one year, I don't know what year it is, but there was one year where March itself put them over 40 because there was 30, I think 30 inches fell in the month of March. Well, not that much fell in from December through February. And then they got the 30. So I'm thinking in that year that they went over 40 because of the 30 inches in March. I'm sure there are others if you look at the stats where you're going in with about 15. I would think that if you're going in with 15 or more at the end of January, you've got a fair chance. I don't know what if it's 50-50 or 60-40 or 40-60, but I would think if you had at least 15 going in at the end of January, and the pattern was favorable, that you'd have a fair chance of at least getting to normal, if not above. Glenn W., always a great show, he says, and also hitting the super chat tip jar. Thank you so much, sir. Now,
Michael Azera, right below that Glenn W. super chat, saying, I remember a temperature drop similar to that on Groundhog Day in the late 70s or early 80s. Temps dropped from the 40s to like 9 in a few hours. Mike, you are referring to the infamous Groundhog Day storm of 1976, which I remember so well. Woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, had one of those indoor-outdoor thermometers, Joe, living in Throg's Neck. And I woke up at 5 a.m., and I was able to actually watch. I was actually able to see the mercury fall. I kept blinking my eyes. The temperature was falling as I was watching it from about 45, and by the time we got to 7 a.m., the temperature was all of 11 degrees. Meantime, the heavy rains that were falling from the previous few hours switched immediately over to snow, and with maybe the possible exception of the blizzard of 78, the visibilities were cut so far down, I could hardly see across the street. And we picked up the quickie 2 or 3 inches in less than an hour's time with the heavy snowfall. By 9 o'clock, it was all over. The sun was out. But by then, the temperature was like 8 degrees. You're absolutely right, Mike. That was about another amazing drop or plummet of temperatures in just a very few hours. And that, again, was in 1976. I remember Gordon Barnes, listening to him on CBS. Those of you may remember Gordon Barnes. He was calling for high temperatures falling from the 40s into the 20s during the day. And at 7 o'clock, he had to tell Lou Adler, who was the news director at CBS on the air, he said, well, I called for temperatures falling into the 20s. It's already 11 degrees, so I guess I'm going to have to update the temperature forecast. That was incredible.
I remember going out after it got down under 10 degrees because everything it had rained the night it was raining the night before.
Right.
So everything that was a flash freeze to end all flash freezes.
Exactly.
It just everything just temperatures fell so fast. You just could not get that ice off of you had to wait for it to warm up a few whatever we did days later. For it to melt because it was impossible. You couldn't even go at it with an ice pick.
And you talk about a bomb cyclone or bombogenesis. 7 o'clock in the morning, the same storm that brought us, it was rippling right up along the eastern seaboard, and it interacted with a frigid Arctic front. And as soon as the two met at like 4 or 5 o'clock, that thing just exploded. And at 7 a.m., I remember Bob Harris on the Rambling with Gambling show. He did the weather way back then on 710 WOR. He said that the central pressure of this storm has now dropped to 28.5 inches, and it was sitting near Cape Cod and rocketing away to the north and east. He said that's every bit of a midsummer hurricane. Yeah. And it certainly was. It was just amazing situation that occurred that morning, Groundhog Day morning in 1976. I remember Elliot Abrams on 1010 Wins. Those are the good old days, Joe, and I'm sure you did the same thing. I'm twisting the dial, listening to all these stations that had
1010, 88, make sure you Mary Catchy Catch AccuWeather, whatever it was, at like 35 minutes after the hour, and then you had to go back to 88, and I forgot when they used to do it. They didn't have that weather on the 8th.
I listened to the Travelers Weather Service on WTIC in Hartford, and I used to listen to Don Kent up in Boston on WBZ, and also on shortwave and longwave. You talk about shortwave radio. On longwave radio, they had Newark Elmira radio where they would give the terminal forecast and the hourly observations. I mean, none of us at those days had access to Circuit A teletype reports, so we'd listen on longwave radio to get the latest hourly observations or whatever. But I remember Elliot Abrams on 1010 Winds. Again, it was Groundhog Day. It was the morning, and he said many self-respecting groundhogs are searching for their heavy coats and not their shadows this morning.
Yeah.
That was those were great days.
By the way, the sellout 19 on the chat board says outages are mostly on the Cape and in the eastern Mass coast. Heavy, pasty snow, plus the winds creating a mess right now. Thank you, sir, for the report. And Christina Pedia telling me I should keep my Christmas tree up. My grandsons will love that. Yeah, that's my plan. I think I'm just going to leave it. It's to take it down is I'm too lazy to take it down. So I think I'm just going to leave it. I may just leave it up right through the summer and just have the kids decorated for every season. It'll look nice. 144 likes on today's show. Thank you for those of you who've hit the like button. And if you do like our show, hitting the like button is a nice thing. Joe and I love when you hit the like button. So 200 would be great, but happy with the 145. And don't forget, if you're new to the channel and you do like the show, to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because Joe and I do this show at least 5 days a week, and this week we've been on 7 days. And speaking of which, Joe, so let's discuss tomorrow, because we got to wrap it up here. I got my daughter coming over with my son-in-law and my grandsons, and I got a vacuum. So because my daughter expects the house to be absolutely spotless, so I've already you ran through the kitchen and cleaned the countertops and all the rest of it. I got to clean the table here, so I have to set the table for dinner. So a lot to do. I think we should take the next 2 days off and come back on Tuesday.
I agree. I'm not gonna argue with it, because my brain is fried. I'm sure yours is too.
Oh, very fried. Very fried. I'm having trouble. It starts usually after we get to, it usually starts for me on the 5th day. So when we're on a normal schedule, when we get to Thursday, I start having trouble holding on to my thoughts and speaking in complete sentences. And you might have caught that today a few times, where I kind of get hung up and I can't grab the word, whatever the thought I have in my head, I can't seem to hold it. And of course, a lot of that has to do with the fact that over the last 10 days, we've just been, especially the last 5, just absolutely buried in maps all day long. And I'm putting up website posts and doing all sorts of other things that you just get tired. And when you're in your 60s, you get tired a lot, and your brain gets fried a lot faster than when you were in, you say, your 30s and 40s, when you could do 20 things at once and just maybe get a couple of hours sleep and then wake up and start all over again. So I need to recharge my battery, and I think you need to recharge your battery as well. So we'll take the next 2 days off. 178 likes, 178. So we need 22 more. Let's get to 200 so that I can go baste my turkey and take care of that and get the vacuum cleaner out. So my daughter doesn't give me a lecture about the house not being as clean as it should be.
You talk about your daughter, but let me just say about Mrs. Rayo, and she gets very mad when I say this, but in many ways it's true. Mrs. Rayo is kind of like a hybrid of Martha Stewart and Tony Randall's version of Felix Unger. I mean, you talk about getting a lecture. I guess if she's Felix, I'm Oscar. There's no question. She said, how do you deal with all of this? When she comes into my office here, and I say, there's a method to my madness. I know where everything is, and all of these piles of stuff all over the place. Thank you, Mark G. Take several days off, he says, Joe. You deserve it. Thank you so much for this week's coverage, and we appreciate that, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. So, folks, no show tomorrow, no show on Monday, so we'll be back on Tuesday with who knows what'll be on the maps by the time we get there, because I'm not looking at a thing at least through tomorrow. As I said, I need my brain is fried, so I'm going to take a break. Okay. Have a great day. Make sure you weather folks who are like to look at computer models and like to look at every radars and satellites and all the rest of it. Make sure you take a little bit of time to go at least look outside the window and watch what's happening because you've been waiting. Actually, when you think about it, we've been waiting. You have to go back to what 2018
Well, we
for
had a pretty good snowfall. We had December of 2020. We had 10.5 inches. Then we
yeah.
had another one last February. At the beginning of February last year, we had a pretty good
Yeah.
sizable snowfall.
But this one,
so that was it.
this one, at least if you're in the coastal areas and Point East, especially out in the New England, this is a big one. This is the big one that you get every couple of years. So you've waited three. It's been 3 years probably since that's happened, and so
We had
remember,
200,
just
Joe.
enjoy it. Excellent. Okay, great. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you at Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.